What is up guys, Delboy here. So Lee Selby defends his IBF featherweight title against Jonathan Victor Barros by a clear unanimous decision. Jonathan Victor Barros was tough, he was rugged, he was kind of awkward, but Selby was too rangy, he was too slick, he was too long for Barros to get close really. Selby, to me, considering the circumstances leading up to this fight, obviously his mother passing away, and yeah, he was remarkably composed. He looked pretty solid really, and also considering he's not really been that active lately, the last title defense was back in April 2016 against Eric Hunter, over a year ago. He has had a sort of tune-up fight since then on the David Haye Bellew undercard, but he's not been active, and I felt his stamina management, for each round was really impressive. He always looked in control for the most part, and he boxed quite well. The first 5 rounds in particular, I felt he looked quite sharp, popping that jab, looking for that right hand counter when it presented itself. In the first 5 rounds, Jonathan Victor Barros was kind of just, he was falling short of his overhand right. He was landing a few jabs to the body and a few hooks to the body, but apart from that, he was only landing those sort of single shots. He wasn't landing anything great. But Selby was always landing the jab. He was landing that counter right hand, and he was clearly the better boxer in the first 5 rounds. At the end of the 5th round, Selby got a cut, and in the 6th round, it looked like Selby was just kind of assessing the situation. Victor Barros had a good 6th round in my opinion. He did put a bit of pressure on. He saw Selby was cut, and it looked like he tried to put the pressure on, and that was one of his best rounds of the fight. But after round 6, Selby regains composure, starts boxing at range again. Again, Jonathan Victor Barros is quite rugged. He's quite sort of ungainly when he attacks. He falls really short of that right hand, and Selby was just picking him off when he could. Selby, to me, although he's really slick, although he's really awkward, and he is sort of a counter puncher, but he is quite inaccurate sometimes as well. And he was doing that again in this fight. He still missed quite a lot of shots, but I think that's just partly due to Lee Selby's style. That's just what he is, He'll make you miss, but he doesn't always make you pay. And that's one thing I've noticed about Lee Selby over the years. But he was winning every round in this fight quite clearly, in my opinion. In rounds 11 and 12, he really started to go through the gears, looking to sit down on his shots. Particularly in round 12, where he landed a lovely short left hook up close, which dropped Jonathan Victor Barros. And after that, he was looking for the finish, sitting down on his shots, working the body, coming up to the head, looking really good offensively. And that's one thing about Lee Selby. When he actually sits down on his punches, he looks really, really impressive. Sometimes he's got a habit of just arm punching kind of thing, but when he sits down on his shots, he looks quite good. And what I saw in rounds 11 and 12 is what I'd like to see more of Lee Selby doing, because even when he sits down on his shots, he doesn't get hit that much. Sometimes he gets caught square on, like we saw against Eric Hunter, but for the most part, he's still pretty defensively responsible, even when he lets his hands go. But yeah, good win for Selby. Did what he had to do against his mandatory challenger. Where does Selby go from here? I mean, you've got big domestic fights against the likes of Scott Quigg, Carl Frampton, Kid Galahad. They are all fights that will sell. From what Selby's team are saying, they would go down that Frampton route. That's obviously where the most money is. Carl Frampton is a big name in the UK, particularly Ireland, obviously. So I'm sure Selby will want to go down that route. And I think it's a winnable fight stylistically. He's a much bigger guy, he's a longer guy. It's just whether it's an intriguing fight. I think it's a 50-50 fight, but I still think it's winnable for Lee Selby. The thing is, in that fight, if Lee Selby does square up like he does in a lot of fights, there's these moments where he just squares up and he's open for like a right hand over the top or whatever. If Carl Frampton times that, how's Lee Selby going to react to that? It's going to be interesting. That's a good fight. I like to see it. Hopefully that fight gets made. Failing that, as I said, domestic fights with the likes of Scott Quigg or Kid Galahad. Both fights I'd love to see. And failing that, obviously, there's other guys at world level knocking around. There's Leo Santa Cruz, Gary Russell Jr., Abdon Mares, Oscar Valdez. There's some big fights for Lee Selby. Let's hope he gets those fights, because he's I want to see how good Lee Selby is now. He's beaten some decent fighters, the likes of Gradovich, the likes of Jonathan Victor Barros, the likes of Eric Hunter. They're decent fighters, but they're not upper echelon in that division. I'd like to see him in with the likes of Frampton, Leo Santa Cruz, or somebody like that. What do you guys think of Selby's performance? Where does he go next? How do you see his future at featherweight? Can he beat some of the guys I mentioned, like Carl Frampton, like Leo Santa Cruz, like Oscar Valdez? How does he do against those guys? Let me know. Peace.